Hi everyone, my name is Kirsten Kraus. I'm Research Advisor for Wiz Academy and facilitator of their research capacity building workshops. Welcome to the Wiz Academy YouTube channel, where we empower researchers like yourself to excel in your research. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to defend a lit review strategy. This is especially important if you want to demonstrate to your examiner or your reader that you are in command of the literature of the discipline in which you are working. So stay tuned. The purpose of a review of literature is to provide a conceptual basis for defending different scientific claims in your research. In essence, for us, it means that when you do a review of literature, it might be that you do a review of literature on a topic, you will do a review of literature on problems, research problems, you might do a review of literature on different methodologies and then zoom in on the specific methodology that you are using. And you might even do a review of literature on different theories and then the particular theory that you are looking into. Rowe said that the ultimate goal of a review of literature is to transform the identification of research gaps into research avenues. In practical terms, it means that, before we can make an expert contribution or before we can provide a better explanation, whether it's about the problem, whether it's about an appropriate methodology or appropriate theory, we need to spend time listening to the experts in the field. Now, this act of listening basically means that you need to do a thorough review of literature. Ngwenyama said that one of the most important scientific claims of any, scientific endeavor is that the researcher should demonstrate a command of literature in the discipline in which the researcher is working. So in this session, I will talk about how to defend a lit review strategy. Now, in a lit review strategy, there's actually 4 phases, and I'm not just talking about the searching of the literature. I'm also talking about the review and the writing process. There's actually 4 sort of broad phases. The first phase is preparing yourself. The second phase is searching and organizing the literature. The third phase is reading and reflection. And then the final phase in your review of literature is editing. Now, in the preparing phase, it basically means that you need to choose a lit review approach and you need to define and come up with a purpose statement for your study. In the searching and organizing phase, it basically means that you need to defend and then use a particular strategy for doing a review of literature. A very important part of that would be to organize yourself, organizing all the literature that you've read, whether it's in tables or whatever it is, because you can actually, let's say at PhD level, read over 300 papers. You might then decide that, let's say 80 of those are relevant, but you need to organize yourself so that you can remember what you've read. In the third phase, which is reading and reflection, you need to engage with the literature. In other words, internalize. For that, it's about reflection, it's about generative writing. It's really about generating ideas and reflections while you read each of these papers. And then in the final phase, which is editing, all those different positions that you find in the literature should be organized in the form of a sort of imaginary conversation or an argument. In the editing phase, you need to look at principles of argumentation, especially between yourself as the reader and the experts in the field, the people that you've been listening to, how to structure that argument and how to make it flow, how to make sure that there's alignment, how this review of literature will inform research directions, and eventually how this review of literature will align with research questions. Now, in terms of presenting the review of literature or actually writing, obviously, one of the early phases would mean that you have to read about how to do reviews of literature and then choose a methodology and then stick with it. So there are different methods or methodologies for doing reviews of literature. There's like systematic lit reviews. You can use content analysis. You can use grounded theory. You can use Atlas TI to analyze your literature. There's a variety of those, but you need to choose one of those and then stick to that. But in terms of introducing your review of literature, it's actually useful to, before you start your actual writing of the review of literature, start with the introduction or introduce your lit review strategy. In that, it's useful to state the purpose of the review of literature and indicate how it aligns with your research questions. Explain and defend your lit review strategy. Then present the lit review strategy. In other words, it's the methodology for doing the review of literature. In that, there are things that you need to consider. For example, you need to explain the different types of reviews of literature that you've done. It could be reviews of literature on the problem, the context, methodology, theory. Indicate which keywords you've used and why they are appropriate. And if I say why, it basically means you need to say how those keywords align with your research questions. List the databases that you've used, and then especially use articles, reference articles that say that those are reputable databases. Indicate how you've made sure to avoid questionable science, like for example predatory journals and retracted research. Then indicate how you've organized your literature, because as I said, it might be that you've read like 300 papers, but you decided on 80. And to negotiate all the, the papers and to cope with, the amount of them, it's really useful to have an explanation on how you organize yourself. And for that, you could use tools like Mendeley or even just a spreadsheet where you give your reference and your reflection about each of those. And then introduce the initial findings of the literature searches. This really helps to confirm your problem statement even before you write your review of literature. And so when you write your review of literature, that is where you actually then apply your lit review strategy. Towards the end of your literature, obviously it depends on your style, but normally at the end of your review of literature, you need to conclude to show how the literature informs other aspects of your research, especially the development of your data collection instrument.